All of the philosophical traditions of the world that have wended their way into Europe and the West began their journey in Asia and followed the same trade routes and silk roads that all other commodities that were brought and sold followed in their westward journey. Sophia, the goddess that inspired the tradition named in her honor now and today as philosophy, began her journey in the East. A protracted marathon that probably began in Atlantis. Sophia braved ocean swells and tidal waves to come ashore on the distant peaks of mountains like the Himalayas and the Andes, from whence she migrated into the Indus Valley and the Yucatan Peninsula to spread her wisdom among the people. Philosophy, or the love of wisdom, entered Greece from the mother that spawned her to the south, the uniquely oriental civilization known as Egypt. The pre-Socratics, Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, even great dramatists such as Sophocles, all apprenticed under Egyptian priests such as Solon. It was the Asiatic Sphinx that spawned the Greco-Roman civilization, allowing us to rightfully ask ourselves the riddle of that inscrutable Sphinx. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 in the eve? Answer is, of course, man, and it is clear as much from the question as from the answer that man and civilization is distinctly Asiatic in origin, which brings us to Gaia, the Greek concept of Mother Earth, a philosophy and concept that no doubt followed the same migratory path that Sophia followed through Central Asia to reach the New World to the west. What is true of the human body is equally true of Gaia, the terrestrial mother who spawned us all. She also has dragon lines through which telluric currents flow. These lines of energy intersect at various points around the Earth, creating an energy grid. Certain of these intersection points are power centers, many of which are sources of enormous energy. India is most likely in a location corresponding with Sarasrara, or the crown chakra, which explains Indra's perennial role as a center of enlightenment. We therefore need to look to India for solutions to many of the problems we face today. Indeed, it is highly probable that her network of gurus dispatched around the world are already training adepts that will provide many of the answers to the problems we will face today and tomorrow. It is this very energy grid of Gaia's that black magicians, initiates of mystery schools whose long history probably began in Atlantis, have tried to disrupt in order to deprive human beings of their source of empowerment and enlightenment. We have literally been cut off from our source of power. Black magicians from Japan did exactly the same thing when they annexed the peninsula of Korea, driving what is analogous to giant acupuncture needles into the spine of the Korean mountains in order to disrupt the flow of telluric energy through the peninsula. Many believe that the peninsula of Korea is a giant organism in its own right, with a total of 7 chakra points stretching along the length of the mountain chain that spawns the Great Peninsula. To save our planet and our world, we need to adopt a pan-world philosophy that brings the ancient wisdom of the Orient to the whole world. The fact that so many Tibetan religious leaders have been sent into exile has done much to disseminate wisdom traditions that have long remained hidden from the world in the isolated heights of the Himalayas. Religious teachers from India have also been dispatched as messengers of many faiths and yogic traditions. This is all part of a movement to bring the people home to the source of all wisdom and enlightenment. Back to the source of the 3 sacred rivers from whence the waters of the Ganges, Yamuna, and Sarasvati rivers flow from betwixt the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord of all creation. Call him what you will. What we must begin to recognize is the fact that our home is not a planet or a rock, or indeed anything inanimate, but a living and breathing organism like ourselves. Indeed, Gaia, Mother Earth, is truly our mother, the mother who spawned us and gave us life, and like us, she has an etheric and physical body, and like us, 7 chakra points and several minor ones along the various other meridian lines. We are truly terrestrial creatures created in the image of our mother. We share much the same body chemistry and the same ratio of liquid to solid that she has in her body, and the same salinity in our body fluids. Just as we have minerals in our bodies, so Gaia has in hers, and yet we are stripping her of her minerals as if she had an endless supply, not realizing that by doing so we are depriving her of the essential requirements of life. Her rivers with their estuaries, main arteries, and tributaries are not unlike the arteries, veins, and capillaries of our bodies. Her magma is analogous to our bone marrow, the earth's crust to our bone, the soil that rests upon the earth like our flesh, the rivers that flow through her flesh like the circulatory system that carries vital minerals and nourishment through our bodies. And as for the telluric currents that flow beneath her skin, we must recognize that this is the same wind energy that flows through our bodies, which Far East Asians have traditionally referred to as Gi. And just as Gi energy wends its way through the meridian or dragon lines of our bodies from the chakra points located on the spine, so an analogous process takes place beneath the earth. As for the atmospheric winds of Gaia, does she not have to breathe just as we do, and sometimes issue a heavy sigh, which to us takes the form of a storm? As for the ozone layer that protects her flesh from the poisonous ultraviolet B rays of the sun, does not this protective layer serve much the same purpose as our skins? Would our flesh not become raw and blistered just as hers has, were we to remove this protective layer, this protective skin? And what of us, and the vegetative growth that lives on and feeds upon the flesh of Gaia? Are we not like parasites living on the skin of our mothers? Certainly we share a somewhat symbiotic relationship, but we have to consider the fact that we are not holding up our end of the bargain. We have become nothing but leeches and parasites, sucking the lifeblood and wholesome nutrients out of her, while leaving her nothing in return but the poison affluent of our own destructive consumption. Indeed, we are like bacteria that soil her with our own excrement. In addition, we poison her with the after effects of the wars we unleash against others of our kind. In the war of the parasites, we dump such things upon the skin of Gaia as tomahawk missiles, cluster bombs, smart bombs, and some not so smart bombs, nuclear warheads, napalm, bombs and missiles laced with depleted uranium, etc. As a side note, the American military routinely dumps bombs laced with depleted uranium on the countries it attacks, including the 8,500 tons of bombs it dropped on Iraq in the first Gulf War, and many more on Afghanistan. In addition, the U.S. military routinely tests missiles laced with depleted uranium at its bases in Puerto Rico, Japan, and South Korea, very often with the same complicity and compliance of the local authorities. Is it any wonder that Gaia should voice her displeasure in the form of seismic disturbances as she quakes with fear? Or that she should erupt in volcanic protest or with hurricane-force winds whenever she emits a sigh of exasperation at the antics of the absurd parasite she carries around on her skin? As for the grass, grain, crops, trees, and other forms of vegetative life that grow on her surface, is this not like the hair that grows on our skin? In addition, she experiences desertification on her skin, where ulcers and sores have appeared in place of vegetative growth, just as we develop psoriasis, eczema, and other skin diseases that rob us of our hair. And what happens when excessive oil builds up on our scalps? Does it not cause hair loss and inhibit hair growth? And what happens after our oil spills occur on the surface of Gaia? Is it not precisely the same? And what causes desertification, and what causes excessive heat, cold, and flooding on the surface of Gaia? Is it not because her gi is out of balance? Are not the wind energies thrown into disarray by activities that cause what is known as El Niño and La Niño? Do we not develop volcanic eruptions on our skin in the form of skin sores and acne when our gi energy is thrown off balance? When heat and cold are displaced by gi imbalances in our bodies, do we not develop desertification in the form of eczema and psoriasis? The convection currents that occur on Gaia result from the equatorial heat coming into contact with the cold temperatures of the poles. If the poles become excessively cold, then the convection current increases in velocity, resulting in high winds, storms, and seasonal and climactic anomalies, such as unseasonable cool or hot weather conditions. Similarly, if the tropics become excessively hot, high winds, storms, and other seasonal and climactic anomalies will result.
Balance is essential.
The planet needs medicine, and we are the herbal doctors and acupuncturists capable of providing Gaia with her remedy. What do the herbal doctors and acupuncturists do when they encounter unseasonably warm or cold weather in a certain part of the human body? Do they not attempt to restore the balance so that that part of the body can experience some relief from a protracted winter cold or an unseasonably hot spell? If there is excessive heat in the head and the internal organs have become cold, the acupuncturist and herbalist devise a remedy for restoring balance by channeling Qi energy away from the head to the internal organs, and vice versa as the case arises. And what therapy or treatment does Gaia require at the moment? Clearly her organs have become too hot, while the outer extremities of the head and feet, namely the poles, have lost much of their cold. This has created an imbalance resulting in excessive desertification, flooding, El Niño, La Niño, and excessive cold spells and heat waves, all a result of inherent imbalances resulting from too much internal heat at the tropics and a warming at the poles. The remedy is to get our acupuncture needles out and apply a dose of herbal medicine. What kind of herbal medicine? Well, herbs, of course, plant life, reforestation, a program of planting more trees, shrubs, and grasses, a concerted effort to reclaim our deserts with water reservoirs and planting programs, and of course, we have to halt deforestation and clear cutting going on in so much of the world, including the Amazon and the rainforests of Southeast Asia, not to mention the vast forest lands of Canada.